Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Red Tinted Glasses podcast. European football returns to Pittodrie this Thursday night as the Dons face Fcsb. Oh, that's going to be a tongue twister throughout this episode, I'm sure. But we'll also reflect back on the cup victory over Greenock Morton as the Dons progressed in the Premier Sports Cup. In Phil's absence, those of you watching on YouTube will notice, no, Callum is not returned, despite the Dons announcing two signings, which we'll discuss. But normally on to discuss all things Ross County. But now that he's back being a fan, Andy Skinner, delighted to have you alongside me. Skinner, how you doing?
Oh, good, thanks, Glen. Absolute pleasure to be on again. First time in a while, and no, nice to, as I say, be going back to games as a fan again. That's where my head's at right now. After stepping away from the P&J back in the summer there, so no, it's been a mixed start to the season. It's fair to say, but certainly just nice to be back in amongst it again.
And nice for you to come on with a bit of positivity. Obviously a win as well, but must be nice for you to come on here because, as I said, normally when you come on this podcast, you're having to speak about what it's going to be like for Aberdeen to come up against opposition, but you can speak freely about what it's going to be like for Aberdeen having won a game, but also we are going to look ahead briefly on that game on Thursday as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a little bit ring rusty because I mean, I've been covering Ross County for a long time now, so it's, as I say, I've always kept a close eye and got along to games whenever I can. Obviously, the cup final being the most recent prior to this season as well. So it's just a different vantage point altogether. It's one that I've always had a keen interest in, and that being said, I do still take a keen interest in what's going on up north as well. And no, as far as this week goes, it's all focus on the Europa League efforts.
Yeah, absolutely. But of course, we'll go back and reflect on the domestic cup front. As I said, the Dons progressed after a very comfortable 3-0 victory over Greenock Morton at the weekend. I will give a shout out to James Binney and his pals, as I said I would, for their excellent hospitality pre-match in the build-up. And sadly, it was him crying at the end, not me. But Skinner, as we tend to do on this podcast, we look at the way the Dons lined up. Maybe a bit of a surprise. 3 changes to the starting lineup. Gavin Malloy coming in at left back. Graham Shinney dropping out completely with to the bench. Ante Palaversa and Shaden Morris also coming into the starting 11. Certainly the talk on social media was maybe a bit of surprise to see Sivert Nielsen retain his place. Maybe not so much seeing Ante Palaversa in there, but were you surprised to see that midfield too, given the kind of levels of criticism both Graham Shinney and Nielsen received? We've got a huge game coming up on Thursday. We did speak last time, could both be rested, but Jimmy Tleen stuck with that experience of Nielsen. Was there a surprise from you to see those changes?
Not massively, given the circumstances surrounding the game. I did expect there to be some element of change coming off the back of the Celtic match. Yep. Just with the manner of the opening 2 matches, and the fact that there had been players that had come off the bench and made an impact. Albeit Palaversa wasn't one of them. He hadn't kicked the ball prior to Saturday, but that in itself, I think, lent itself to him being exposed to some game time on Saturday. I think just a freshening up of the side, really. Shaden Morris, in a lot of ways, it doesn't seem to really make too much difference. But whether he's starting from the beginning or coming on, at some stage during the second half, he's always expected to make an impact. So whether he starts or not, there is always that expectation on him that he will influence the game. And so it was nice to see him get that chance from the start on Saturday. And in the case of Gavin Malloy, I suppose it was really, again, similar to Palaversa, just trying to get some minutes into him, in a slightly unfamiliar position in regards to where he played last season. it showed that he could be an option at left back, where obviously there's a shortage at the minute, just enforced by the new signing Gyamfi's injury. So it was just a little bit of a shuffling of the pack, which probably the right number of changes. It was nothing wholesale, and probably just about right given the importance of the game as well, because coming away from Celtic, 6 days prior, there was a real sense that Morton away in the League Cup's going to be a huge game coming up, primarily because it was the last game before entering Europe. But it's also pretty much
That
the
chance
only.
to win silverware, isn't it?
Well, there's that as well. But we're in a run now of hardly any domestic football. We've got nothing at all until August the 31st. So from a momentum point of view, I think it was just crucial to go and post as comfortable a victory as we did, and the manner of it was really pleasing.
Yeah, absolutely, and maybe kind of bodes to Jimmy's cup speciality. I think we kind of alluded to last season, albeit that Hampden horror show aside, that's 12 wins out of 13 in cup football for Jimmy Tulin during his Aberdeen tenure. Could it be lucky 13 this Thursday? That remains to be seen. You mentioned there Gavin Malloy getting minutes in his left back role, unfamiliar certainly compared to last season when he played at left centre back. I have to say, not just because he's fair-skinned like myself and had to battle what was a lovely day in Greenock, absolutely roasting, but I thought he was a real standout on Saturday. I thought he supported Shayden Morris really well up the left flank in our attacks, defended really well. Of course, primary role, what he's in the squad for is defending. Deceivingly quick would be the kind of real standout for me. I didn't kind of expect him to be as quick going up and down that wing. But overall, I thought very solid and impressive game. Now, with kind of the centre backs, we seem to be quite blessed in that position. Could a performance like he put in at the weekend really give Jimmy Tulin some thinking to do around that left back area, and also offer us a little bit better protection than having to utilise Graham Shinney in that role?
I think so. Yeah, he's got all the attributes. He's, from what I saw of him last season, admittedly it wasn't, a huge amount, because it was kind of the latter part of the season that I got to more games last season. Not that I'm a glory hunter or anything, but I did manage along most of the cup matches, just with the way they fell. But obviously Malloy was injured during that period. But yeah, no. But from what I understand, he seems quite mobile and athletic on the ball. Am I right in saying that, Glen?
Yeah, well, that, again, the athleticism really kind of stood out, and he looks extremely comfortable with the ball at his feet and playing the style of football that Jimmy Tulin wants to implement as well.
Yeah. So that bodes well, I think, in terms of what you would look for from a left back. Obviously, in the first couple of games in the league season, we've seen a situation where Alexander Jensen's played at left back and Nicky Devlin's reverted to the position that he held down at the beginning of last season. So there are different ways of navigating that fullback position, because I think the expectation is that it will be quite a while before we see Emmanuel Gyamfi. Not least the fact he's picked up what looks a fairly serious injury, but there's obviously the fact he'll be nowhere near match sharp, and he'll be adapting to football in a new country. So it would be timely if Malloy was to be able to stake a claim and show up well in that left back position in the meantime.
And I think it does bode well. You're absolutely correct. I think some people will be shouting at their phones or their TVs, however they're tuning into this episode, being like, "Stop getting carried away. It's only Greenock Morton he played against." And you probably have to caveat that with agreeing with that sentiment, because for us, as well as he did, with the greatest of respect to Morton, they didn't offer much of a threat, if at all,
Mm-hmm.
in that game. It was a great chance for Mitov to really top up his tan at the weekend. So I'm sure those of a Morton persuasion will be really disappointed in how they approached the game. So yes, we can sit here and sing Gab Malloy's praises, but also have to counter it with saying he wasn't fully tested on his defensive duties, which, of course, as I've said, is what your defenders are generally going to be marked against. And I'm sure
Sure.
if deployed in that left back position, he will definitely be tested to a greater extent on Thursday than he was on Saturday. In terms of the midfield, though, Nielsen, as I said, came in for a bit of criticism for both performances at Tynecastle and Pittodrie against Celtic. Maybe the surprise inclusion over Graham Shinney, given Shinney's the captain. But I have to say, for all the criticism that I gave Nielsen last time out, I thought he marshalled the midfield extremely well. The chance that Topi Keskinen had 3-on-1 in the second half when he was very greedy and didn't square it to Oshish or Yengi. Nielsen charged 20 yards, furious at how greedy Topi was, which I think signals just how much he still cares. The game was, we were 2-0 up at that point, fairly cruising, but he still wants to have that killer instinct. What do you make of Nielsen and his position in that midfield? Because he is that, I don't know, he's that an odd player. It feels kind of wrong to say, but when things go wrong, he gets highlighted, and when things go well, it doesn't, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of goes under the
Yeah,
radar at times.
he certainly plays an enforcer's role in that position. He is certainly not mobile by any means. He can be cumbersome on the ball at times, and sometimes his decision making. But I have come to rate his influence on the side,
Mm-hmm.
and it's clear that he's trusted primarily by Jimmy Tulane.
Yeah.
That's really clear to see, and even though there have been question marks at times, that's a huge commodity in any side, really. I mean, how did you feel the midfield functioned? Obviously, Shinnie being the main absentee, but
Yeah.
Palaversa coming in alongside Nielsen. Do you feel as if that brought a better performance out of Nielsen, or
Well, I know
was the,
when Keith's listening back to this, he'll probably disagree with everything I'm away to say, but I know me and you will think what's new there with Keith disagreeing with one of our opinions. Um, I thought personally the first 20 minutes we were slow in moving the ball through the midfield. I think it's something, again, maybe those that watch the game on TV will disagree with, but certainly those around me, there was audible frustrations in that midfield area in spreading the ball wide. It was one too many passes to get it wide, or the ball was stopped in that midfield pairing and then played back. For me, the bigger culprit of the two in that was Palaversa. Um, I think it's maybe more his style and what he's used to in terms of recycling the play, but it feels the same. Palaversa or Nielsen, Shinnie or Nielsen, it's two similar minded players. I feel with Clarkson and Palaversa, one can do that sit
Mhm.
and recycle, whereas the other is a bit more forward thinking and will look to play that ball forward. They've got the kind of easier switch mindset, whereas I feel Nielsen and Shinnie are both very defensive minded,
Mhm.
and Palaversa slips into that alongside. So I can see again why people maybe disagree with that and say, well, actually, it's quite clever. We're moving opposition from side to side, we're wearing them down, and then trying to find the killer pass. I suppose had we gone into the Morton game off the back of some points on the board, maybe some of that frustration wouldn't have been so audible. But personally, I can see where it comes from, because you want to move the ball forward. You have to score goals to win games. When, especially from where I was at the weekend, behind the goal, you can see the space. You feel the pass is on. When that pass isn't being made and you're playing backwards and then it's going back to Mitov, it's like, oh, come on, do something
Yeah, yeah.
adventurous. So yeah, for me, I thought at times that midfield pairing was a bit slow, but ultimately it was enough to get the job done, which is really, in cup ties, the main goal is get through. It doesn't really matter how you do it. It's as long as you do it.
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I suppose Nielsen you wouldn't really call a ball player as such.
No.
Palaversa definitely has that, string to his bow.
I think you're right on
It's
Nielsen though about him being that sort of enforcer, and
he's a physical presence.
Yeah, it's probably one of those players as well. If he was playing against us, you would notice him more than when he's
Yeah,
actually playing for us.
no, very much
Um,
so. Absolutely.
Kusini Yengi, obviously another player who's had a lot of talk around him. He was included in the starting lineup again. I think it's also quite ironic that the two players maybe with criticism, Nielsen and Yengi, were the first two goal scorers at the weekend. How important do you think it was for him as a striker, getting that goal, getting confidence? As obviously you've had experience in the past, I'm sure, when you've had to interview players that have been on barren spells in front of goal. How do you think
Absolutely.
he'll deal with that now that he's up and running, albeit a 2-yard tap and they all count the same?
2-yard tap in, they all count, and
Yeah.
it'll be a huge weight off the shoulders. You know, it just totally changes the feeling and the mood in his head, because he's moved to a new place. He's already being judged after a game and a half. I did feel a bit sorry for him after the Celtic game, I have to say, as uncomfortable it was to see him suffer and struggle in a few instances in that game. He's just finding his feet, and he's not arriving at Pittodrie with a huge amount of confidence either.
Yeah.
Bearing in mind he was injured for a period last season and didn't score at all. That's been well documented. But there's clearly a defined role that Jimmy Tilleen has kind of found for him that I'm sure we'll touch on it later when we come on to the the most recent edition. But just in terms of the prototype for what he's looking for from his centre forward, I think there's definitely going to be more to come from Yengi, and just to see him hit the net and get a feel for being back on the goal trail, it can only help him and the team just kind of grow into this new kind of season.
Yeah, and I think it's fair because, again, for those of us that were at the game, could see he did grow in confidence. Myself and Phil mentioned about his lack of work rate throughout the Celtic game, but there was a desire. I remember, I'm sure it was in the second half, he chased the ball out on the wing, made the tackle, the ball goes out for a Morton throw. I thought his general hold up and link up play was, not that it was hard to be much better, but he was linking up well with O'Sheesh, laying the ball off, who was then spraying it out wide. So things were beginning to click, and obviously, yes, it's a tap in, but for him, it's as you said, a weight off his shoulders. It's confidence, and again, people say again, it was only Morton, like the quality of defenders he was up against, but I think at the end of the day, for a player who, as you've said, has been on the receiving end of a barrel load of criticism, some will argue at how unfair that level has been. It will do him the world of good. I just hope that on Thursday, if again, likelihood is he will start, as you said, the most recent addition, Marko Lazetic, which we'll come on to, hasn't as yet been included in that European squad. So Yengi likely to lead the line, take something from that and continues where he left off. And again, with a big crowd at Pittodrie, we all get behind him so that if the first touch isn't bad, think, oh no, here we go again.
Yeah, exactly. It brings a sort of fresh version of him, almost, the fact that he's got that goal. But it's not just about him as well. Although there is a little bit of continuity from last season throughout the team, it's the attacking part of the side that that has probably, in terms of the starting lineup anyway, that we've seen in the opening 3 games, that's the bit that's changed the most. And those combinations, those partnerships always take time to develop. They always take more time than it does the defensive side of it. The organisation aspect of it has by and large looked okay. I mean, okay, the game at Tynecastle wasn't wasn't brilliant. We didn't cover ourselves in glory defensively in terms of the 2 goals that we conceded there. But I thought against Celtic, from an organisational and a structural point of view defensively, we were fine. It was 2 very good strikes that defeated us on that occasion. Hatate's goal in particular.
Yeah.
And as I say, I always find that any team that I've covered or watched that have brought in a number of new players over the summer, it's those attacking kind of combinations that always take the longest to really click into gear, because there's a lot more fluidity in that position, a lot more expectation maybe on creativity to come to the fore, and it doesn't happen overnight. So a lot of Yengi's role, I suspect, is going to be to really be a good link up and a good sort of foil for some of the guys around him. And the fact that you saw Milanovic obviously heavily involved in the build-up for his goal, but Ashish getting an assist as well, and Morris, I think, swinging the corner for the first goal, was it?
I think no, I think it was Ashish.
Ashish with the corner, and who set up Clarkson's goal again? Was that
Tope's pass?
Tope, sorry.
Morris did have involvement. It was Morris's shot for the second.
That's right.
That Milanovic unselfishly squares. I suppose a role reversal of the Cove Rangers game. But I think it's a really interesting point you highlight, Skinner, there, saying, speaking about the changes to the team, because it's 3 of the front 4 have changed over the course of the summer. And you're going to have to get on the same wavelength, know the runs that Yengi makes, or Yengi likewise knows what runs the wingers want. Is Milanovic going to run it inside, outside? Do you have to play it to his right foot because that's where he prefers to take the first touch? There's a lot more for them to think about. And rightly, I think you're also correct in saying an expectation. Milanovic, an exciting player. Topi Keskinen, yes, blows hot and cold, but so does Shayden Morris. Again, he started the game. He was involved in the second goal, but overall, I'm still not convinced about him being a starter personally. So I do think that it's a really fair point to highlight. And again, people will say, yes, it's only Morton, but it's almost an ideal game when we're not having to get out of second gear for these players to get a bit of confidence in that communication, that link-up play, and hopefully in the more challenging games, again, with the greatest respect to Morton, that's when we see the benefits of the goals and the link-ups from these games. So I guess time will tell on Thursday night especially. But, again, going back to Oshish, another impressive outing from him. I thought his set-piece delivery in particular was great to see. I suppose, though, one thing, obviously with us really having not to get out of second gear and being relatively cruise control throughout the 90 minutes, how much can we gauge from that victory at the weekend, if any, or because it's cup football, should we really worry about gauging anything and just take that victory in the cup progression?
It's going to be a completely different set of circumstances in terms of the intensity that we're coming into on Thursday. There's no getting away from that, but from a confidence point of view, it can do no harm. As you say, you've rattled off pretty much an entire front line there that have been involved in either goals or assists. So, that's kind of what we were hoping to take from the game, along with the obvious, progression in the cup. We really wanted to see a little bit of a glimpse of what the team was capable of in an attacking sense, and I think without having been there myself, it seems as if that was achieved. So
I think you're actually right. I hadn't thought about that pretty much every attacking player had some sort of involvement in the goals that we scored. It's a very good point, actually.
But obviously there are various factors that all align to making Thursday a completely different proposition. I mean, it's for one, I mean, it's actually our first experience of European football under Jimmy Tillene. So there could be a change in his approach. I mean, I don't think there will be a drastic one, but it might bring out a different version of us that looks different to how it does against domestic opponents. But for a lot of players as well, it'll be their first experience of a European night at Pittodrie. And as I say, I think the fact that we've had a difficult couple of games to start the season, although they didn't go as planned, and we didn't show anything like what we feel we're capable of.
Yeah.
I think the fact that we have played difficult opposition in those first two games can possibly help us as well. You wouldn't write the two games off in any way, and call them free
They're not
hits,
free
but
hits, no.
no, but you, if you are looking at it from a point of view of being warmed up and ready for coming up against what promises to be a difficult opponent, then it's probably not a bad grounding for this. I don't want to call it new look team, but team in progress.
Well, yeah, team in progress. We'll go with that. I know when we spoke after the Celtic game over a few drinks, we spoke about Knooster's injury, and obviously he missed the game at the weekend. Remains to be seen whether he's fit for Thursday night. So maybe some concern amongst the Aberdeen support seeing Gav Malloy go off allegedly with cramp. I think he'd gone down a couple of times. It was holding his ankle, if I remember correctly. So I'm not sure if cramp's the official word that the teams like to use to the press when they're hiding an injury. But the bigger concern, I suppose, will be Jack Milne going off, which saw the Dons finish the game with 10 men. If he's got a little bit of an injury, because again, we do feel with Tobers being injured, Knooster's being injured, Jack Milne question mark. Could a centre back become a priority between now and the end of the transfer window? Or from maybe some of your connections, have you heard things are actually rosy on that injury front and we don't need to panic yet?
No, I've heard absolutely nothing, and I suppose it's protocol. I should add as well that any European game, the press is always held the day before. I think match day -1 to give it its Sunday name. But so tomorrow, I'm sure my former colleagues will be along at Cormac Park gleaning the latest on the injury front. But you're right. I mean, defence from what looked to be a position of strength, really, all of a sudden does look a little bit light. Tobers is looking like he's going to be out for a fair while. I mean, he's not been named in the squad for this tie.
Yeah.
So I believe he's not kicked a ball yet this
no.
Pre-season included. So and yeah, obviously Milne and Malloy being concerns off the back of Saturday. Knooster, I suppose, would be the main one, because I mean that was I think a soft tissue injury that he picked up in training on the eve of the Celtic game. So I think Morton was always looking unlikely for him, but I wouldn't imagine that'll be one that rumbles on. Whether he is fit for Thursday, I don't know, but
I suppose
I
if he's
expect
not
him to be out for.
Yeah, if he's not, the blessing is we don't then have a game at the weekend.
Yeah,
but the worry then would be if Jack Milne's not fully fit, you're then looking at Dorrington and Malloy as your likely centre-back pairings, which then drifts either Devlin or Jensen to left-back to avoid putting Graham Shinney into there. But again, you know, so a possible defensive headache selection coming up for Jimmy Talene, but we can maybe speak about that in a little bit. Just to round off the cup action then, the reward for beating Morton is a home tie on the weekend of the 21st of September against Motherwell, themselves under new management this season and looking fairly solid. That's shaping up to be a cracking cup tie with both sides, I'm sure, fancying their chances of getting back to Hampden.
Absolutely, yeah. Home ties, cliched as it is, a really crucial part of that. I think. I think we'll all be happy with that. It will be a tough game, though. I mean, Motherwell have looked impressive so far under, as you say, new management. They seem to dominate a lot of the ball under Jens Bertholascu.
I'm glad you went for that pronunciation. That's why I just said new management.
Just obviously impressed a lot in the game against Rangers at the start of the season, but even in the the draw at Paisley a couple of weeks ago, I
Mhm.
think they had something like 70% possession in the second half of that. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely quite clear to see the way that they're going about, the challenge this season under their new manager, and it remains to be seen how successful that will actually be in Scottish football, and how
Mhm.
effective it can be. But the early signs look quite good. So no, when it
Yeah.
comes around, that'll be a good tie to look forward to, I think.
And of course, he's come up against Jimmy Tillin in the past in Swedish football, so I'm sure there'll be some interest from there when that tie comes around as well. We've obviously touched on the Dons and their latest acquisition in Marko Lazetic signing from AC Milan on a 4-year deal, with the sell-on clause up for debate. Anthony Joseph saying it's 50%, Scott Burns saying it's 20%. So pick your fighter and choose which one you believe. But a player that obviously the club have been after since January finally got it over the line. Again, you'll have folks saying it's a project signing given his goal scoring record, but look, we've been crying out for another striker to boost the ranks up there, given Sokler's limited time. Ambrose, his future remains unclear as well, and obviously with Alfie Babbage up in your former stomping ground. So, yeah, I think reasons to be excited, but also I can understand the cautiousness behind the excitement as well.
Yeah, it looks like we're trying to kind of dip into a little bit of kind of untapped potential here, because clearly, for AC Milan to part with, what is it, £3.5 million or 4.5 million euros, I think,
Yeah.
um, a few years ago to sign him, then there must have been something there in the first place.
Mhm.
They would have done their homework prior to that, and for whatever reason, it hasn't worked out for him with that move. Obviously, he's had some loan moves that haven't
Mm.
brought about prolific goal scoring form, but
Yeah.
I think I'm right in saying he's only 21, 22.
Yeah, it's still young.
So still a young lad, but yeah, obviously he's another kind of 6'4" forward in similar mold to Yengi. So again, I think we're seeing what Jimmy Tillin is looking for in
Mhm.
regards to that focal point. Um, and I think the fact that we were in for him in January, clearly he was out on loan at that point, back in his homeland, I think, back in Serbia. Um, but the fact that we've gone back in for him again in the summer,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have done that presumably if we hadn't kept a close eye on him. I'm sure he's been closely monitored over the last 6 months, and despite the fact he's not been among the goals, there must be something there that assures Jimmy Tillin that he can be an important figure for us. And as I say, the fact that he brings that presence and um, perhaps off the ball work rate and ability to hold the
Mm.
ball up, again that maybe suggests that he's looking to bring out the best in the guys around him, and in a similar way to how we were talking about with Yengi earlier on,
Yeah.
against Morton. I mean,
Uh, Maybe offers a bit of a different dynamic because Yengi looks very physical in terms of his height, but
mhm.
Lazetic a lot more pacey. Kind of a
Yeah,
lot of what we spoke about with Dabag when he signed, about a player that likes to play off the shoulder of the last defender. I don't really see as Yengi being that type of striker that would play off of the shoulder effectively.
yeah,
So yeah, you want to have versatility, you want to have different dynamics to change up and make defenders think, they're not just having the same style, from when the substitutes are being made.
yeah. But it's also the fact that you're not pinning all your hopes on your number 9 to be the
Well,
main
that,
goal scorer.
mhm.
Um, I mean, I'll go back to it's totally irrelevant in regards to what we're talking about, but back to when I was covering county. I mean, the most prolific season I remember them having was when Regan Charles Cook was playing for them, and Joseph Hungbo. They both scored double figures that season. But
Mhm.
the main striker that year was Jordan White, who was far from prolific. I think he scored
Mhm.
half a dozen that year, but his work rate and his ability to hold the ball up for these wide players was what made that all work. And maybe, with some of the signings that have been made, I mean, this maybe pivots into, the other signing, Bilalovic, but the fact that he's there, you've also got, Keskinen, Morris, Milanovic, Oshish. There are a lot of kind of attacking midfield players there that you would hope could, form some sort of combination. Yeah, and benefit from playing alongside, whether it be Lazetic or Yengi. There will be different ways that these combinations can work, and regardless of who it is that comes up as our main talisman, as long as it functions well, then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and as I said, him, and you've mentioned there Kenan Bilalovic, also signing on a big year contract as well, £500,000 allegedly spent, bringing him in from Vernomo, a winger. Again, people are going to say a bit of a project. I think it's only 1 goal so far this season, but again, adds to that strength in our wing play. You've already mentioned a few players. Fletcher Boyd didn't even get a mention from yourself.
Yes, that's very poor, actually. Yeah.
Well, he's been getting more minutes this season as well, which is great to see. But
yeah,
obviously
absolutely.
there's been some interest around Shaden Morris and what his future holds as well. So potentially, again, with the word project being used around Jimmy Tilleen, some of these signings feel like projects, but it's getting a player in that we can develop, but also sits in there with, okay, yes, Morris Keskinen might be ahead of Bilalovic, but we've now got somebody that can start getting in, working with players, and if injuries or the time comes where we need him, he's there and ready. Because you know what happens when we've got a schedule like this, you pick up a couple of injuries and suddenly it's, oh, why didn't we sign another winger? So we're being proactive. I can, again, as I said, I can understand why some of the cautious optimism around these signings is there, because they're not recognized, they're not standout players. But look, if we can bring them in, develop them, and build them on to, it forms the model that we've got. I suppose, though, it would be amiss of me not to ask you, when we're speaking about signings, yes, the Dons have just signed Lazetic, but are you ever surprised, given obviously your previous work with Ross County, that the Dons never went for Ronan Hale during his time there, or maybe surprised that Ronan's still at Ross County?
I am, to an extent, surprised that he's still at Ross County. Whether he still is by the end of the window, I don't know. I mean, I certainly know that his agent likes to share clips of him on Twitter quite a lot, and he does seem to be linked with an awful lot of clubs. How much of it's concrete, I don't know, but yeah, I'm not sure if he'll still be there by the end of the window, but he remains a county player for now. In terms of Aberdeen, it would have been a signing that would have made sense, but whether he would have, again, really fitted what we were looking for, I'm not sure. I mean, I can't fault many parts of his game, really, from what I saw last season. He certainly brings work rate off the ball. He went through patches of form through the season and finished it superbly. But I mean, by the end of the season, he was pretty much carrying County, and they're at that point threadbare hopes of staying up. Were it not for him, then it would have been done and dusted long before the playoffs even. But
yeah,
I could have seen the merit in it, but I'm not entirely sure it would have. I'm sure it would have worked out fine, but just when you look at the style that Jimmy looks to be going for, I'm not sure he
fits
quite the style of forward that that we're going to be seeing in the months to come. Maybe similarities there to Kevin Nisbet from last season to Ronan Hale, but he's got a bright future.
Maybe not up to Tawdry.
I can't see it, but you never know.
Right, let's take a look then at Thursday night as the European football returns to Pittodrie. Ultras Aberdeen, on the back of that successful All in Red at Hampden campaign, are urging all those heading to Pittodrie this Thursday to don red and have a sea of red, greet the players when they come out. I know the Fans Project have done an excellent job in setting up a full stadium tifo display for pre-match, so lots to be kind of in terms of the pre-match build-up and get ourselves excited. Hopefully the excitement continues during the 90 minutes in a good sense for ourselves, and tickets seem to be selling well as well, with just the Richard Donald stand left to sell out. So Skinner, what's your thoughts ahead of Thursday and maybe some hopes as well?
Yeah, always hopeful. Obviously, home tie first, which gives us an
Favourites, do you
opportunity.
think?
You know what? I think it maybe does actually. It gives us the chance to put our stamp on the game from an early stage. It can backfire as well because if you end up on the receiving end of a chasing, then it becomes a really difficult prospect going over to
Mhm.
Bucharest. I mean, I'm expecting a difficult opponent. The FCSB. Sorry,
Told you it'd be
I'm
a
getting
tongue
tongue
twister.
twisted. they they've clearly got a good European pedigree. They were involved in qualifiers for the Champions League at the beginning of the season. They got deep into the Europa League last season. Well beyond the group stage, and beat some decent opponents, the likes of Midtjylland, Pauk, and Karabag, teams that we've come up against before and
Yeah.
come up short against. That they kind of brushed aside last season. Obviously, games against Rangers and Man United, I think, were the only two that they lost in the group stages. So
Hmm.
they won't be in any way kind of phased by the European stage. Neither should we, obviously, but
Yeah.
I do expect a team that will be quite efficient on this setting, and um, going by some of the comments from their camp, it seems as if they feel as if it's going to be a bit of a formality, but
Well, I was going to
that
ask you about that because we've seen in the past, Groningen famously when
yeah
they quote after the first leg about how much they were through and that backfired. I mean, their owner is well known for being outspoken. I think that the quote as well from the weekend said that he subbed one of the players off at halftime because he lost
yeah
every duel in the first half. So, if folk think Dave Cormack's bad, it could be worse by the sounds of it. But do you think that will be being talked about, or certainly maybe by your colleagues put towards Jimmy tomorrow or today for those listening,
oh, I'm sure it will be.
in his
Yeah,
presser?
I'm not sure they'll get much back from Jimmy, right enough, on that
No.
one. It, going by what I remember, but yeah, it's difficult. You might use it to an extent, but to be honest, it's probably par for the course. It sounds like
Mhm.
that's just his usual approach. It's probably no different from how he speaks to the national media about any
Yeah.
game in Romania. Um, yeah, I'm not sure it's going to have too much of a factor in
Mhm.
regards to what we'll come up against.
Yeah.
Um,
And we're going to get an opposition fans' point of view from Stour coming up shortly, being joined by Sergiu Vecerdea to get his thoughts. But we've mentioned Thursday and it not being a free hit in the sense, I know some might view it as a free hit given we've got the fallback of the Conference League if things don't go right this week and next. But how do you think Jimmy and the squad will or should be approaching this game? As I said, I do think the fact that we're at home first, potentially an advantage. Hopefully, the game does get to that sellout stage, and we know what European nights under lights at Pittodrie can hold, and the kind of special atmospheres that they have as well. And I think if we can at least either take a draw or be in the lead going over to Bucharest, I don't see why we shouldn't then fancy ourselves next week.
yeah, um, even though there is a fallback, I want it to look as if there's not. I want
Yeah.
that to not even be thought about or considered. there needs to be an intensity to the game that really sets the tone for how we're going to play in Europe this season. And I just want to see a really electric night at Pittodrie.
Mm-hmm.
By the sounds of things, the crowd's going to be good. I mean, you would expect that. To be fair, it's first European tie in a couple of years, so I certainly, in terms of the approach, I certainly don't want to see anything that's overly cautious or safe in regards to the fact that we've got guaranteed group stage football coming up. Because the Europa League would be a fantastic prize. And since the format has been the way it is now, neither ourselves or Hearts have managed to go that step.
One extra, yeah. Where do you sit on, like, obviously I think what you've said to start that is absolutely spot on, and we should almost clip that up and get that played to the players, that we want you to play with that intensity, that there isn't a fallback, because that really should be the attitude throughout the club, and I'm sure it will be, because there obviously has been a lot of debate about, we should be happy with the fallback of the Conference League because it's maybe a better chance of going that one extra in terms of progressing to the knockouts. But we should be setting that standard to be at obviously the top tables of Champions League. That's not where we are, but you know where I'm coming from. We should set ourselves to get to the highest goal possible at this moment in time, which would be the Europa League.
Without a doubt. And when you've earned a crack at it, you've got to go and give it your best shot and try and do it justice. I mean, obviously we earned this by our run to the Scottish Cup final and by winning the Scottish Cup last season. So when you think of everything that went into pulling that off, this is the reward for that, is a two-legged opportunity to try and get into the Europa League group stages. And that's a different format from what if we were to get there, we will never have experienced the current format of the Europa League group stages either. So, that brings new territory for us as well.
And to be honest as well, the draw, again, with the greatest respect to Fcsb ahead of Thursday, and speaking to Sergiu as well, is this draw could have been a whole lot worse. I think, out of the four teams, the section that we got, this was definitely the tie that most fans would have picked. So on paper, we know games aren't won on paper, but the fans have that confidence, and I'm sure the players will also have a little bit of confidence as well. Final question then, Andy, how do you think we approach the game on Thursday night? Do you think Jimmy looks to take the game to the Romanians from the off, or is it kind of a cautious build-up? Because as vulnerable as they look defensively, having conceded quite a few already this season and not doing great domestically, we've also had our frailties. So kind of taking what you've said about not wanting to throw ourselves out of the tie early on, is there a kind of build up into it? And
but it's a combination of things, because I want to see the attacking threats that we have engaged in the game really early, and trying to put a stamp on the game from an early stage in the tie. That doesn't mean just throw all caution to the wind, but I don't want us to. When we've got the home tie first, I definitely think there has to be some sort of intent. But I suppose it's about managing the tie as well, because you can't win it, or I suppose lose it in the first leg, but you can lose certainly go a lot.
If it goes really wrong.
When you put it like that, it feels a lot easier to lose it in the first leg than it does to win it in the first leg. So, it's really just about trying to put ourselves in a good position for going over to Bucharest, and even a winning position would be far from job done. So.
Yeah, and I think, if you look back to the last round as well, obviously they found themselves 2-0 down at home early on and fought back to get a victory, which they took over to Kosovo. So, maybe something for us to be cautious about, that even if we find ourselves in a similar position on Thursday night that we go 2-0 up, that's not a given because this
No.
team obviously don't know when they're beaten. They've had a high-scoring Derby defeat as well. Their game at the weekend also ended 2-2. So, as I said, yes, they are there to be got at defensively. They can also, by the sounds of it, hurt us just as much. And as I said, yeah, we'll hear Sergiu's thoughts in a second. But I guess that is kind of cautious optimism that we have to have as well. Yes, there's going to be chances, but we have to do our job defensively as well.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, going back to that analogy that you posed there about being 2-0 up and far from safe over two legs. I mean, we saw that within 90 minutes against Pauk a couple of years
Wow.
ago, and
I didn't want to bring that one up.
no, but I mean that's an example of how crucial game management is in
Mhm.
Europe, because it's a completely different scenario for the players and for Jimmy as a manager. But Jimmy's got experience of European competition himself
Yeah.
as well, which he can hopefully bring to our benefit on this stage.
Mhm.
As I say, that I just want to see a good sense, at least in the first leg, that we can cause them problems, and even if we don't, find ourselves in a winning or even drawing position, then we've still got something more to offer over in the national stadium in Bucharest.
Yeah, and that we've actually shown that we can, as you say, cause them problems, look to hurt them, and if worst case we fall to a 1-0 defeat, we've shown signs that over
Yeah.
there we can be in the game. But no, Skinner, absolute pleasure getting you back on and offering a red tinted glasses perspective from a change, not your Staggies spectacles. And yeah, and also your insight into Thursday's game and what we can expect from an Aberdeen point of view. But yeah, delighted to now be joined by Sergiu to get the Steaua Bucharest perspective. Sergiu, welcome along to Red Tinted Glasses. You're a Fcsb fan based in America and a fan for a lot of years. So welcome to the show and looking forward to hearing from you.
Thanks for having me, Glenn. I'm glad to be on.
So I guess first of all, we'll speak about the draw itself. Myself and Andy there were just speaking about the draw and Aberdeen fans viewing it favourably when the seeding sections were made. Now that you've got past Drita, maybe in a bit more of a fashion that you didn't expect, how are Steaua fans looking at this tie?
Well, to be quite fair, I think Steaua fans are a bit disappointed. We were hoping for the Champions League this year. We pretty much kept the same players this year. Normally, after every season, we sell our best player to fund the club. That's pretty much been our standard for the last 10 years, to the chagrin of many fans. And because of our Europa League success last year, where we reached around the 16, our owner and our president and everyone in the staff was like, we're going to keep our starting 11. We're just going to add a few bench players, and we're going to attack the Champions League, try to get into the Champions League. And since the start of the season, everyone's been out of form. There's been injuries. We barely got past the Andorran champions in the first round of qualifying for the Champions League. Then we stumbled and lost twice to the Macedonian champions. So that's why we ended up playing Drita, which is the Kosovo champions. We got past them. We was expected to get past them. I was expected to get past the Macedonian and Andorran pretty easily. And now we're facing Aberdeen, and we're just a bit like whatever happens, at least we're playing Europe. We're just lost a little bit, because we were looking at the team last year, and we're like, the team last year, I think, not to offend any Aberdeen supporters, we would have definitely beaten a team like Aberdeen, I think 9 out of 10 times. Now I think it's more of a coin flip. I think either team can have it, and probably you guys are more likely to go on through the way things stands right now with the injuries we have and the out of form players.
Yes, so it's kind of interesting for those that like a gamble on sports. We'll see that Aberdeen, I think, well, last time I looked, were maybe slight favourites for this game. It feels wrong to be favourites given the pedigree that you guys had in Europe last season, obviously starting this season in the Champions League as well. Do you feel that you should be favourites going into this?
I think an even a playing field is about right. I think just because like right now we've played 13 matches already this season. We start really early compared to other leagues, and we finish quite late. There's 40 leagues matches during a season. We also played 20 matches in Europe last year. And then we had the Cup, the Super Cup. We played 64 matches in total last season. We ended up, and then all our players went on international break in June. They didn't really have any like vacation time. They seemed burnt out. I think some of them actually wanted to go abroad to get a transfer because the highest paid player on our team is Florin Tanase, who's a left wing, and he makes 360,000 euros a year. And then the next few players make 300,000 or less. So I think a lot of players are like, hey, we had a good Europa League last season. I kind of want to go abroad. Maybe I want to play for like a Celtic or Rangers or in the UK, but like nothing came out of that. And I'm still here. Some of them got injured at the end of last year. Some of them got injured in summer. So right now they're just like they play really timidly. They're like second to the ball. They're scared of not getting injured. I feel like a lot of them are scared not to get injured because they're like a lot of our captain got injured in January right before we faced Manchester United, Dario Solaru, and he required shoulder surgery. And he was out till the summer. He just got back, and he's been in and out of the team because he's not informed. Like he can't play. And he was our best player in 2024. So right now we're like, oh wait, what's going on? Like even our best players are not informed. So yeah, I think a slight favorite to you guys is probably fair if that's what the betting odds say.
And you speak about the form and the poor form that you guys find yourselves in domestically hasn't gone great. European football, as you said, you crashed out the Champions League to a team we previously beat in Europe in Scandija, stumbled past Andorran opposition and found yourselves 2-0 down to Drita, came back to win that 3-2. The second leg scoreline maybe suggests more convincing, but you shared the highlights with me from the weekend's match, and goals certainly conceded seems to be a problem. What, with the greatest respect, is going wrong form-wise for FCSB right now?
Well, our Joxin Dawa got injured, which is a starting center back. Left center back. Then right now, Risto Radunovic, was our left back, is also injured. So that whole left side of the defense is injured. I think Radunovic might be ready for Aberdeen. I don't know if in the first leg, for sure in the second leg, but maybe he'll miss out in the first leg. So that whole left side of the defense is just a couple bench players. At left back, we'll have Alexandru Pantea, who's a Romanian under-21 international, but he's only 21 or 22, I believe. Might be 20, I don't know, 21 to be safe. So he's quite young. And then at center back, we have Popescu, who actually played in Scotland. I don't know if you're aware. He played at St. Mirren and at Hearts and at Hamilton Academical between 2019 and 2022. So he was normally our bench center back, but now he's in a starting role. He actually called up to the national team this year because we had quite a few injuries even at the end of last year that he had to play. And he did quite well, but he's still our bench player. Dario Solaru, like I said, our captain, who's a central attacking midfielder, even though he got injured in January, he's only played like 5 or 7 matches, a few matches this season. And he's like in and out of the starting lineup. So I think he's going to play against you guys as well. But it's like question. His form is questionable because our team like kind of uses a lot of subs early. So if you're not playing well in the first half, at halftime you're out, and then you're not playing in the next game.
Decision, is it?
Well, not really. It is and it isn't. It's kind of confusing. Like usually our owner likes a certain type of player, and he would suggest on television that we need to start these players, and usually our coaching staff goes along with it. Sometimes they don't, because sometimes like during in the second leg against Drita, we had 3 central defensive midfielders starting, and we had no central attacking midfielder. And all our fans were like, "What's going on? Why do we have so many central defensive midfielders?" And they asked the owner that after the game, like, "Was it your decision to play that?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "I didn't want to do that, but our coaching staff said, hey, we needed like strength right now, and because our other players are out of form, and we need like strong guys in the midfield to like at least not concede any more goals." So yeah.
What do you make of your owner's comments? A lot of it's been reported in the British press, that he's confident that Aberdeen won't be an issue for his team, and you'll be in the group stages of the Europa League. Is that a confidence shared amongst fans? Does that add extra pressure to the team and the manager when he's outspoken like that, or are they used to that?
Well, I'll answer that in two ways. First one, I'll just say we're used to that. Second off, I think you got to understand a little bit about Romanian culture and how Romanian media conducts itself. So what a lot of like Western pundits or Western commentators, Western journalists don't understand is since the 1990s, like after communism fell, media in Romania was like the Wild West. So you could say anything on TV, do anything on TV, on the radio. So we had shows in the late 1990s, early 2000s that would bring hooligans from Steaua and Dinamo in the same studio. And they would just like yell at each other and like curse each other like on TV. And that wouldn't be allowed. Like you wouldn't bring Rangers and Celtic fans in a studio and just go at it, say what you want. So they did that a lot in Romania because it was the Wild West. And they used to bring like football owners on and give us your opinion on this player. He's not playing well. Or give us your opinion on this guy. He's playing well. Or like just comment on your team. And that's a tradition that keeps to this day going on. Like after every Fcsb match or Steaua, whatever you want to call it, they call Gigi Becali, like every single television station, every football news show calls Gigi Becali, like, what's your opinion on the match? And they do that to other owners as well. So Varga at Cluj, they call that owner. Rotaru at Craiova, they call that owner. And usually they just ask, what's your opinion on Aberdeen? And I saw that commentary. It was right after the match against Drita. They asked him, like, what's your opinion on your next opponent? And he just said, I don't really know that team at all. And he's like, but my staff tells me they're slightly better than the teams we faced so far in Europe, but we should get past them because we should have gotten past the teams that we didn't get past because we're a better team. So that was his comment. It wasn't like a trashing of your team or anything like that, or that we're super confident. And he's like, he knows the team is weak right now. He just said, hey, I'm not going to criticize the players right now because they're in really bad form, and I've been criticizing them and they're not improving, so I'm not going to criticize them even more right now. And he's just like confident, like I wouldn't say everyone else, because right now if you look at Romanian Twitter, a lot of our fans on Twitter are like younger. They're like teenagers or the young 20s. So they're like, oh, this is the worst team ever. We need to fire everyone. Everyone needs to be released. So they're like a little bit exaggerating after every loss. But for the most part, people are like slightly confident that we're going to get through. I'm not, but I think it's, like I said, it's even. We're going to have to see in the first leg. If we don't lose, I think if it's a draw or if we only lose one goal, I think we still have a shot. If you guys lose, I don't think you guys have a shot to bring it back in Bucharest.
Well, it's funny. That's what we were just speaking about as well in that first part, about how I think it's important with Aberdeen being at home first that we remain in the tie or take a lead to Bucharest. Do you think being away first is a problem for yourselves? Not at all, not really caring?
Not really. I think we like playing the second leg at home because we know what we need. And we can go all at it if we need a goal or two. And I think we're a lot better at home. So not at all. I think we do have some injuries right now, like I said, to the left center back and the left back. And then we also our bench striker, Denis Alibek, is also out injured. And I don't think he's going to play at all in this tie. Maybe they'll put him on the second leg if we need a goal, but he's been in and out of injury. He's 35 years old, so he's quite old. Our main striker, though, he's going to be a problem for you guys. He's actually not only our starter for FCSB, he's also the Romanian national team starter at striker. So he's quite a good player. He's also been battling injuries. So like that's kind of really hurt us at the start of the season. Like a lot of players in and out of the lineup. Like I said, Berlijo was out and Alibek were out. So our two main strikers were out at the start of the season. And then our next striker is an 18-year-old Adrian Stoyan. And we played him like once or twice, but the owner was like, hey, we're not going to play this 18-year-old. He's too young. So we were playing a left wing at the striker position, and he wasn't doing that well either. So we weren't scoring goals. We out of the 13 matches so far, I think we scored 21 goals, and we have allowed 20 goals. So that doesn't win you many games when you're scoring as many goals as you concede.
Yeah. Let's talk about the negatives then first before we come to the maybe positives from your point of view. That comment there, you've conceded 20 goals this season so far. Is that a concern for you going into this game? Because I know obviously at home, well, both ties you've conceded against Drita, Scandija, as well. Is that a concern that, again, being away from home, you could find yourselves in a difficult situation taking the tie back to Romania?
Well, last year we had one of the best defenses in the league and also in the Europa League. If you look at how many goals we conceded last year, I don't want to guess because I don't have that top of my head, but we had one of the better records last year in the Europa League. But our starters were all in form. They're all running like a machine. Right now, they're not. Like even our right back and our left center back, and Ngezena like messed up in that goal against Rapid. So he's not doing well either. Kretsu, who's our right back, is 36 years old, and he's going towards the end stretch of his career. So I don't know how much longer he has. And we don't have anyone. Well, we have an 18-year-old backing him up. So I don't know if we have anyone because the other guy is playing left back right now because of Radunovic. So yeah, I am aware of the concern that you guys might score a lot of goals. I think we're just going to try to keep it down to like one goal, that we're not going to allow a lot of goals, even if we're not going to attack you guys. I think we're just going to try to not concede too many goals to bring it back home for the second leg.
Given then how Aberdeen like to utilise the wings to attack, and you've obviously stated some of the ageing players you've got there on the fullback roles, is Aberdeen's kind of direct style where we'd like to take on the fullback and put balls into the box or drive at defenders, is that a concern, given how you've started this season?
Like I said, it is a concern. We have a really great goalkeeper. Our goalkeeper is probably third in line or fourth in line for the Romanian national team. He was looked at by Galatasaray before they went with the Manchester City goalkeeper. So he's probably not going to get a transfer abroad anytime soon either. Yeah. But he's really good with reflexes. He's really agile. I think he's going to be okay stopping shots. I think he kind of stumbles sometimes on crosses, so that might be a problem if you guys have wings that like to throw crosses in a lot, especially with one of our center backs being kind of new to the starting role. He did play a lot last year as well because there were injuries last year as well, but it is a bit of concern. I think we can get you guys on the counter if you guys are going to go attacking us a lot. We do have a lot of depth on the wings that we can attack you guys with.
Yeah, so there's some positivity that we can at least score some goals or attack this Fcsb team. In terms of then flipping that around, what threats do you guys have that you're hoping can hurt Aberdeen?
I think on set pieces, we're really good on set pieces, especially off of the corners. Free kicks were pretty good as well. Florin Tanasa is going to take, I think, all of them, or Olaru. Other positives, I think I can look at, we have a really good striker in Berlija. If he gets the ball in the box, it's going to be a shot on goal. So hopefully your goalkeeper can save them. He's really good with his head, good with his feet. He's not the fastest striker. As long as you guys don't keep our midfielder away from him, I think he's going to get the ball and he's going to try to put it in the back of the net. I think he scored 3 goals in the last 2 games. So he's in form. One of like 2 or 3 players on this whole roster that's in form. So I
Do
think.
you do you feel you're going into this game in hope rather than expectation?
I don't want to say that. We had a really good last year, and it's the same team.
Hmm.
If you look at our roster, like yeah, Dawa is injured, but 18 players on our roster, our whole 25-man roster, how many players our team owns, 18 players have at least one international cap.
Hmm.
Of those 18, 13 have played for the Romanian national team. So they're quite experienced. They should be performing a lot better. I think it doesn't bode well for the Romanian national team who has World Cup qualifiers coming up. Uh, Only one of them starts but a lot of them are bench players, and you'd expect
Hmm.
a bench players to, at least for the club team, perform a little bit better.
Yeah.
So it's not hope; it's like an expectation. Like you guys kind of should go through. I'm not as confident based on what they've seen. And the thing that doesn't make me as confident is just because they've had a lot of injuries. And I think even the team president said this over the weekend. A lot of the players are timid. I think
Mm.
that's what's wrong with our team. Like they're scared of getting injured again because all of them have been getting injured over the last year,
Mhm.
and they're just like, "Hey, I don't want to miss out the season or miss out a long stretch of the season because that means I'm not getting a good transfer abroad. No one's like scouting me." And
Yeah.
for clubs in our league, like this is our Celtics. Like FCSB is the Celtics. This is as top as you
Mm.
can go in our league. Like
Yeah.
you want to go out and earn more money somewhere else, and if no one's scouting you, you're kind of like stuck. This is the end of the road for you.
Well, it really does for me feel set up to be a very intriguing couple of games. I'm torn between feeling confident and nervous ahead of Thursday night. I think the confidence will definitely win over between now and kickoff. I think there's talk as well of 300 fans coming to support your team on Thursday night. What can we expect on Thursday night from the fans, but also for those going to Bucharest? What can we expect from your fans?
I mean, our fans are going to be chill. The days of like hooliganism is like long gone. I think 15 years ago, I would have been like, "Hey, don't mess with our fans." 15 years ago is a different brand of football. We were called a different name back then, and we had like a lot more hardcore fans back then. And they would probably tell a lot of the kids on Twitter to chill out. Um, but it was a different thing back then. Right now, it's just a lot of fans that do go. A lot of them are like YouTubers, influencers. Some of them are like family members of the team. Some of
Mm,
them are from Palooza North, who are like I wouldn't say a firm, but they're like a strong support for the team. They have been for like 20 something years. So
yeah.
some of them would go, but I don't think a lot of them are going to go because it's quite expensive to go from Bucharest to Aberdeen. If it was in Glasgow or like London, it would be a cheaper flight.
Hmm.
But it's a bit expensive, and I think a lot of them are just going to be Romanians based in like Scotland or
Yeah.
Northern England.
Yeah, well, it's certainly set to be an intriguing tie on Thursday. Sergiu, thank you very much for your time and giving us a bit of an insight. And well, what we might actually do is, given the Dons don't have a domestic game this weekend, we'll maybe catch up with you after the game on Thursday night to get your thoughts on the first leg and how you're feeling ahead of the second leg as well. But for yourself and also Andy Skinner from the first part as well, thank you both for joining me, and thank you to everyone who's watched this video and listened along to the episode as well. Remember to leave a like, comment below, or subscribe wherever you're tuning in. Until next time, we will